Alright, fine. So in the last class, I had told you how to install QTP. This is QTP which we installed, and if I start it, fine, I'll get a window like this. Hold on. Yeah, a window like this. Okay, and let it open. So I told you that you should open the browser only after opening QTP. Okay, don't open the browser before opening QTP. Otherwise, QTP will not work on that particular browser. Alright. So this is the test panel over here. Alright. And when you code over here in this section. Okay. So as I had told you earlier that if I go in the recording mode by clicking on the record button, fine, and I open a browser, and suppose I go to any website, say cnn.com. Okay, and I click on any link over there. So QTP will start recording everything. Fine. And if I stop this script, I close the browser and I run it. So QTP will repeat everything. Whatever I had done, right, it will repeat. So this is the run button which will run your script. Okay. Now record run feature is there in all the tools. Right. This feature is present in all the tools. Now when you run your script, okay, you get a result as well. This is your result view. Fine, this is your result viewer. You can close this, right? Now it's quite frustrating that every time you run the script, a result viewer comes up in the end, right? So you can make it, you can do a setting like I'll again run it. Now when you click on the run icon, again you get a window like this. Always select this option when you are practicing. Temporary run results folder. Otherwise, if you select the first option, uh, the results they are stored at a particular location in your PC which occupies unnecessary space. Right. So you select the second option that temporarily store the results when you are practicing. Okay. And you run your script. So it opens up a browser. Fine. And you get a HP result viewer window as well. Fine. You can close this window and you can do a setting through which this result viewer window will not come. Okay. You can go to tools, options and run options. Okay. And deselect this, that is view the results when run session ends, and click on OK. So now when you run it, the result window will not come up. Okay. So hold on. If I run this, then you see that the script is over and the result window never came up. If you want to see the result window, you can click on this result icon, this one. Okay, you click on this and the window will open. Right now, what is the meaning of these lines? Okay, let's go into this and let's see. Right, if I uh, tell you clearly, then uh, okay. To tell you the concept of these lines, fine, you need to understand the concept of classes and QTP. Okay, concept of classes and objects. Right now, for QTP, technically everything is an object. Okay, this browser is an object, right? Skype technically is an object, fine. Then hold on. If you go into a browser, then every link in the browser is an object. Okay, if you have ever seen two automation testers talking to each other, then you will hear the words that object is not found, how to detect object. Okay, so everything is an object, right? Even inside the browser, the page is an object, a link is object, a button is object. Fine. And all the objects are classified into various categories by QTP. Okay. For example, the categories are like this. I'll make an Excel file and tell you. Like a browser is called as a browser in QTP. Inside a browser, you open a page which is called as a page. Alright, hold on. Fine. If there is a text field, right, in which you write something, that is technically known as a web list. Okay, then sorry, web edit. I'm sorry, web edit. Right. Suppose there is a link on a page. The link is technically known as a link in QTP. Right. Then there is something known as a web list, which is actually a multi-select drop down. Fine. Then web button, which is like obviously a button on which you click on. Then web radio group. This is a radio button. This is a group of radio buttons, right? Then web checkbox. So this is just an overview that these are the inbuilt categories in which the objects they are classified in QTP. Okay. So if you have to actually see these classes, right? What do I mean by see these classes? If you have to actually observe how QTP looks at a web page, then there is something known as object spy, which will help you, right? This is the object spy icon, right? What does object spy does? It spies the object. It tells you what kind of object it is, what class does it belong to, right? And what are the various properties of the object. Okay, right? Now to use object spy, there are certain rules. The first rule is that maximize the browser, okay, then maximize QTP. Make sure that the application under test is behind QTP. Okay, the I'm sorry, the application under test should be behind QTP. Okay, now click on this hand icon. Okay, click on this hand icon and QTP will disappear and the browser which was behind QTP will come up, right? The browser which is behind QTP will come up, and if you move your mouse, suppose I move my mouse over this link US, right? And I click on US, then QTP will come up, and you'll see a hierarchy like this. There's a browser, there's a page, there's a link. Okay, you see that if I highlight link, then I get the class name as link. If I highlight page, then the class name is page. If I highlight browser here, then the class name is browser. Okay, if you guys have any doubt, you can feel free to ask me. Just move your mouse on the top, you'll see a WebEx chat option. You can ask me a question on chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask a question, right? You can also ask me a question on Skype. My Skype ID is QTP Selenium, right? So, alright. So this is the browser, fine. And if you look at the properties, if I highlight the browser class, fine. These are the properties of the browser. That the application is Mozilla Firefox 3.5.16, fine, height, width, and all, you get everything, fine. Similarly, in the page class, you get the properties of the page, that is, what is the title of the page, this is the title, right? Then the link, right? The class name is link and other properties of the link, right? This is the URL href, this is the URL to which the link points to, right? So in object spy, you can observe the properties of the object. For example, again I click on this hand and I move my mouse over this input box, fine, the search input box. Then you'll observe that it's a web edit. The class name is web edit. This is the class name, right? So each and every object is categorized into classes, fine. And these classes, uh, they are visible to us when you spy the object with object spy. Now similarly, if I actually open a Windows based calculator, fine, and I try to detect objects on it, okay, I click on object spy, I move my mouse over, suppose, the button backspace, then you'll see the hierarchy is different in case of Windows based application. It will say that this is a window class object inside which we have a Win button, fine. So window is again a class and Win button is again a class, right? So the hierarchy in case of Windows based application is different than the hierarchy in case of web based application. Basically the difference is in Windows based application everything starts from Win, right? That is, if there is a web list, then in Windows based application it will be Win list, right? In case of a web button it will be Win button, something like this, okay. So this is about classes, right? Now how do we use classes, right? How do we identify classes with, how do I identify objects with classes, and what all is this code, okay. uh, let's observe this, let's learn this. I'll make a new test. I'll not save the changes to the older one, right? Now if I go and record. Okay, QTP will start recording everything. QTP will start identifying every object, right? But what does it do after identifying the object? Okay, like just think of it in a practical way, right? When you start from your home to a particular destination, right? You don't know the path, right? Somehow you manage to reach that place. But next time when you actually move to that place, you know the path, you know the uh, way, that is how to reach that place, because that thing is there in your memory. When you went to that place for the first time, everything went into your memory, right? Similarly, QTP has a memory. When you record, everything goes in that memory, and when you run, right, everything is pulled out from the memory. Okay, that memory is known as an object repository. Okay, you click on object repository, and this window will come up, right? Object repository. Just a minute. Yeah, object repository is just like a memory, right? This is the icon of object repository, right? You click on this, you will get a window like this, or the shortcut is Control R. You hit Control R, you will get a window like this. Okay, right? Now when I run this, right? Hold on. When I when I record this, when I go into the recording mode, I open a browser, right? If I open a browser, nothing is there in the memory as of now. Okay, it is empty. Only the command came up in the code, that is, please go forward and open the browser firefox.exe lying at this path. Okay. Now if I go to the browser, let me restore it. Hold on. Mm, See, this is my browser and this is my object repository. Okay. Suppose I move over to the website google.com. As soon as I write google.com, fine, I get the Mozilla browser class object in my repository and the page inside it. Right? On Google, suppose I go forward and I click on any link. Say I click on advertising programs. Then this link also comes up in the repository. On this page, if I go forward and I click on get started, then on the Google ad page, the get started link gets added in the repository. If I stop my code, you will see something like this in the repository. Okay, there is a browser class object called Mozilla Firefox. Look, this is the thing. This is the class of the object. This class is fixed. You cannot change it. Fine. You can change the name of the object. I'll talk about it in some time. And these are some properties of the object, which also I will talk about in some time. Right? Inside this browser, there are three pages. Why? Because I actually opened three pages in the very beginning. Right? Mozilla Start, Firefox Start. This was the page in the very beginning. The moment I open Mozilla, this is the page which opens up. Right? From this page, I went to Google. Look, Google page. On Google page, I used advertisement programs link and I clicked on it. And then I moved over to Google Ads page where I clicked on Get Started link. Okay, right. So these are the three page class objects inside the browser class objects. If you look at this, then this is the page class object. And inside the page class object, there are links. Now the pages will not be arranged in the order in which you have opened them. Don't think that in the repository, the pages will be organized in the order in which you had opened them. Okay, the pages are actually organized alphabetically, right? Now if you look at the code, let's discuss, suppose, line number 5. Okay, now whatever is there out here like browser, page, link, these are the class names. Whatever is there which is not in double quotes in this line are the class names. Now what does this say? This says that there is a browser class object in the repository whose name is Mozilla Firefox Start. If you click on this, then this is the browser class object whose name is Mozilla Firefox Start. Inside it, there is a page class object known as Google. So this is your page class object known as Google. Dot link, that means it's inside it there is a link class object called as advertising programs. Dot click. Now this is the operation. If I write in the end dot, you can perform lot of operations which we'll talk about. Right? One of them is click. Okay. I think you are getting my point. Right? So similarly, if you look at this line, then pretty simple, right? These are the class names, and the inside it you have the object names. Right? Now, if I go to the browser class object in my repository, then this is the name of the object. Okay, and I name it to say my Mozilla and hit enter. Automatically, this will be changed in the repository. Sorry, in the code. Okay, you don't have to change it in the code, it will be changed automatically. Right? So you can change any object. For example, advertisement programs. This is the link name, right? Okay, I can go forward and change it as well. Right? Now don't confuse this that if I change the link name, link will not be clicked on. It's not like that. This name out here is a kind of internal name. When you give the code over here that there's a link called advertising programs, this link is actually searched in the repository. Okay, it is found, and then the description properties, all these properties of the link, they help you to identify the link. For example, the text of the link is advertising programs, HTML tag is a. Suppose if I go forward and I change the name of the link to anything, hit the enter button, then in the code as well, this will be changed. This will be mapped to this, and eventually this object will be found out with these properties, that the text is this and HTML tag is a. This is an internal name, you don't have to worry about it, right? But do not change this text. This is actually the identifying property for the link. Okay. If you use object spy, find the same properties will come up in the object spy. So these are the minimum properties with which the link it can be identified on the web page. Okay. If you have any doubts or any questions, please let me know. Let me know if you have any questions, right? Feel free to ask. Okay. Now, in case of say the calculator, fine. If I record, I go to calculator and I click on a 9 multiplied by 6 equals to. So this is the code which gets recorded, and in my repository you will see that there is a calculator object of the class window. Okay, inside it these are the win buttons. Okay, these are the win buttons inside the calculator class object. Okay, so the class names they are different for Windows based applications, they start from win, but you have to be a little careful, right? Now because some people think that if I make 2 out of this 6, if I remove 6 from here and I write 2, this code will work. No, this will not work because win button 2 will not be found in the object repository. Okay, so 6 is there in the repository, so make sure you write only 6 here so that 6 can be found and it can be clicked on. Instead of numeric 6, even if I write SIX and hit enter, this will work. This will work because this 6 will be mapped to this 6 in the repository, and then this will be found out on the basis of this description property. Okay, so window calculator dot, that means there is a calculator class object window calculator dot win button 6 dot click. So this is how you are mapping the object. So what we are doing in diagrammatically, hold on, just a minute. This is my web page, right? This is QTP and this is your object repository. When you record, okay, when you record, the object gets stored from a web page to the object repository, and the code is also generated in QTP, right? When you run the script, okay, from QTP the object is first located in the object repository, and after that in the web page from the object repository. Okay, this is how we record when we this is what happens when you record and run. Now everybody must have heard about VB scripting, descriptive programming and all in QTP. What happens in that? In that we don't have object repository. We have QTP, then we have the web page, right? In descriptive programming, we eliminate object repository. We write some VB code which directly goes into the web page, finds the object and works with it. Okay, we eliminate the concept of object repository, right? So right now we are working on basic QTP. So I'll tell you the concept of repositories and later on I'll elaborate more on this. The second part, that is descriptive programming. Hold on. Alright. Okay. If I make a new test, right, or before that, I'll save this one. If I save this test, okay, I save it in, suppose, on my desktop. I save it as test 1, suppose, right, and I go and make a new test. Then the object repository for the old test, like for the new test, you get a new object repository. Okay. Now, for every test case which you create, you get a new fresh object repository. Okay. If you have to open the older test, then you go to the open test and you go to the location where you have your test code stored. You open the test one from here. Now sometimes people they get confused because when if you physically go to the location where the test is stored, then it is stored under QTP test in day 2 as test 1. Okay, this is a folder and they get confused that I had stored my test case, it gets stored as a folder. They are not, when they open the folder, they are not able to find that what is what in this folder. Okay, so you don't have to worry about it. You just need to go to QTP to open this. You just need to go to open test and you open the test from here. Okay, so don't get confused when you are trying to open the test case by looking at the test folder here, right? Inside action1, inside script.mts, if you open up this file, this will actually have your script which you see in QTP. Fine. The script is actually stored inside the file script.mts in action1. Okay, so hold on. Right. So now as we were talking about the repository is just like the brain memory for QTP in which it stores the objects, and when it has to retrieve them, it looks up for the objects in the memory and it retrieves the objects. Right. Now let's move further on, right, and let us see that in my what is the difference between object repository and object spy, right? Earlier I had told you, right, that this is my object spy. It's also there with repository over here. When you click on this icon and you click on hand, QTP disappears and whatever is behind QTP, it comes up, right? Suppose behind QTP is this browser, fine. And if I click on this hand, then if you move your mouse over the page, you will see the properties of various objects on the page, and if you click them, then QTP will come up. Suppose I click on this, select your Google account, and you come up on this page. Okay, so now out here on this is the web element, right? How do I tell you? Like basically, you know what? Object spy. It is something which only tells you how the object looks like. What are the properties of the object? It helps you to detect the elements in your page, the objects in your page, right? It- but the object repository, it holds the objects. Okay, spy is just like something which can help you see what is what in your web page. Spy is basically more used in advanced QTP when you are not using object repository. Okay, you can spy the object. For example, this is the web element. Okay, or for example, out here English UK, this is a web list. Fine, and you can actually see how the object looks like and what are the properties in the object, but in the object only gets added in the repository when you are using the object during the record process, right? When you are in the recording mode, not all the objects of the page they are added into the repository, only the objects with which you interact, right? You click, input, select, or whatever it is, only those objects they are added in the repository. Okay, so any question till now, technical, non-technical, related to QTP or anything? No question? Everything is clear? It is simple, right? Okay, Rame asked a question. Is there any relation between the add-ins and object spy to identify? Yes. If you don't have the proper add-ins, you will not be able to identify. For example, if I am using Skype, right? This is my Skype. If I use object spy on Skype, you see object spy is not recognizing anything. Everything is coming as win object. Win object basically means nothing is being recognized. Window inside it is a win. Look, even the friend names, they are not coming up. Okay, so I have to, in this case, I have to install a particular add-in, maybe .NET add-in if Skype is made in .NET, or Java add-in if Skype is made in Java, and identify this. You got my point, right? So you have to make sure that you have the proper add-in in your PC to identify the objects. Okay, another important thing is that while spying, okay, sometimes you have the need to move the object spy window. Okay, if I try to move the window, as soon as I click on it, QTP comes back, right? If I have to move this object spy window while spying, you hit the control button of your keyboard and object spy will disappear. See the object, sorry, disable. As soon as I click the control button of my keyboard, see the object spy has been disabled, right? I'm not getting the properties and all anything, and then you can move the spy. Okay, sometimes the objects they are behind the spy, so you see you have the need of moving the spy on the fly, so you can move it like this. Or suppose this is my property. Yes, proceed to Google account, sign in. This is my button, right? If I hit the control key after, like, when my mouse is on this button, right, I have the properties of the objects being displayed in object spy. Okay, if I hit the control button of the keyboard, then I can actually disable the spy, and on the fly I can scroll the properties as well. Okay, this is not possible normally, right? So another question being asked is, the object repository will hold the object details only until that. Look, Ramya, basically the question is, till what point will the object repository hold the objects? If you have saved your test case on the hard drive, then it will hold forever. Like whenever you open the test, the object details will also come up in the object repository. But if you haven't saved your test case, then the object details will just go away. Okay. So the next thing which we'll be studying is the various properties of the object repository on the top. Right. Look guys, I'm not directly jumping over to writing test cases and all. First I'm telling you the concept of this tool, what are the features of this tool. Then I'll gradually move over to the test cases as well. Right. So I'll stop here for today because I think it's more than enough, right? And I need a lot of time to cover these. Like I need at least half an hour to directly go and cover the concepts of these various properties in the repository. Right. You'll be getting the recording